Kia ora koutou, o ngā pahu tōku ingoa, ko Tomaki o Te Kura o Berhampore. I'm the principal of Berhampore School, and very excited to be here to talk to you about what we're doing in Berhampore within our community. It's a real partnership-based approach that we have, and I've seen a few of the partners out in the room here as well. The thing that struck me as we've been going through the presentations is too often when we talk about communities, we talk about singular community. Even from my perspective, in the videos and films we've seen through the various presentations through, there are connections with Berhampore with people you saw actually appearing in there, people we work with, especially in the arts community and the council. Berhampore, we're the kind of school that we always look for connections, and I was struggling a bit with Gisborne until I actually found out that Manu actually lived in Berhampore for a while, so there you go. I've also got a weapon of terror here. It's a clock, trying to make myself keep down to 20 minutes, because everyone else has, and I think, oh no, I'm going to be the first one that doesn't. So I'm going to hit start here. So Berhampore School, it's a school that's got quite a cool reputation now. It's known as one of the inclusive schools, not just within Wellington, but nationally. It's a strong advocate for people's rights. We have partnerships with IHC, the Education Forum for All. It's a school that's very closely aligned with its community, doing lots of really positive things with it. It's a great place to come and see innovative things happening. We've got a delegation from China coming shortly. There's always people coming to visit and see what we're doing. And it's a place that people feel they have the opportunities to flourish. And that's not bad for a school that seemed destined to close 15 years ago. In fact, I actually caught some Ministry of Education people walking around one night figuring out what they're going to do when it closed. So, what is Berhampore School? It's a school with 26 different ethnicities in it, and that's not breaking them down. So some schools would count my children as 5, but we count them as 1, Pākehā New Zealander. We have them from the Middle East, Africa, Pacific, Asia, Europe. We do have Pākehā New Zealanders as well. Families present, there's refugee families, there are English second language families, there's limited income families, there are fractured families, there are families with mental health issues, and there are lots of children with special needs and disabilities. Added to that mix, when I took over in that school, there was a lot of community anger against the school. There was institutional indifference to the school, and a variety of institutions. The school had massive debts with no reserves. There was lots of flight, white flight, girl flight. My senior classes, out of 29 children, had 3 girls in them. There was wealth flight as well. If you had, I used to say people voted with their wheels. Because they could, and so the community was there. They could not leave, and so there's a lot of anger feeling as well. So you can see why some people were saying to me, you know, why bother, Mark? It's going to close anyway. What we found as a board of trustees, we were looking at thinking, what are we going to do here? It's obviously a big challenge. No one actually expects us to succeed. We find that conventional avenues weren't working. We were being knocked back most of the time. We didn't quite fit someone's criteria. And what we realised at the end, there was no cavalry coming. There just was no cavalry coming. So we had to look at what we were doing. And most people say that the only task for teachers in schools is to teach. And you actually hear this from our government right now. My wife's in the room, she's told me don't get angry, so I'm just trying not to. So we found that the difficulty we had was we could never just teach. There were so many issues coming through the door. You know, people say that socioeconomic issues do not make a difference to children's learning. It's just wrong. I don't have enough time to go into it, but it just makes differences. My friend Louise, who's principal at Kandala School, would never tell you that the reason her children achieve so much higher than most of the children at Berhampore is because her teachers are much better. There was a literacy advisor who was doing a professional development with teachers in a very high decile school, and the teacher there said, oh, we work so hard. And this advisor went, no, sweetheart, no, you don't. Because there is a lot more to that teaching job. So what we actually found in the end was the children's needs were so tightly woven with the families that we had no choice. The school had to get involved in improving things for the families. Because we also noticed that there were people in the community trying it as well. So one of the biggest learnings we actually came to over that time was we couldn't do it alone. The concept of leadership in the Western world and measuring outputs is completely counterproductive. People always coming in and want to see where's the decision in the minutes of the meeting tonight that you made down to what actually happened down here. It's so hard to actually get those things. It's just about impossible. So what we decided was we're going to actually start working with people in the network. And what I'm going to talk to you about here is it's not just one project, there's many, many projects. What we actually had to do at the end was just give people the opportunity to participate and to contribute in their way. So, at Berhampore School, what came, the big thing is all those community aspects we're talking about actually represent people that don't actually find it easy to fit into communities or belong. A lot of people are doing their best to make sure they don't, because they just don't understand, don't want to have them included. So for us, that was where we started. Our first real direction was, and it remains, how do we help those who struggle to belong? And we actually started with including children with autism, and it really became a vehicle for understanding how to work with diversity. It became a very good way of understanding how we need to work with multiple people to solve very complex problems, particularly the parents. So the board had a huge commitment to the inclusion, and they always say children first, building second, which doesn't quite go down well with some departments of the Ministry of Education. And every now and then, are there any Ministry of Education people around? Every now and then I say to people, they don't care about children. And people say, oh, you can't say that. And I say, prove me wrong. And no one has yet. Actually, a friend of mine was at up in Rarahi when the eruption started there, and a fax came up, this dates it actually, a fax came off the machine saying, this is how you protect the photocopiers and the computers. And he sent back a fax saying, thank you very much for your second fax, your first one didn't come through. And they said, what's that one? He said, the one to have a look after the children. So, quite often we forget what we're trying to do, you know? So, the top left picture there's one of our fabulous people working with a child, and if you don't have a place in your community, where do you belong? And that's what I think a lot of us in the room are struggling with, to make sure that people do. There's in that middle top circle there, you see there's a statement, we help people no matter what. Now that came out of consultation we were doing with our community, with our staff, with our children, about what we stand for, what we should be doing in the school. And that was a child said that, and it's become just embedded in our charter. So no matter what does that mean? Well, you've got to actually adapt things. There's too much trying to make people fit you. And just a couple of examples of this is that there's one child, for instance, in the class who's got massive anxiety issues. We actually find families and children, most of it comes down to anxiety because of something else. And there's too many people telling them just to get over it. And why can't you be more like me? So there's a child that has huge anxiety issues, coupled with autism, and he developed a vehicle for himself, which was a dog called Snowy. And he walked Snowy everywhere, but Snowy became a problem because children didn't know where Snowy was in the classroom, and they quite often stepped on Snowy because he's invisible. Now some people would say, snap out of it, don't do it. What the teacher did was she actually started to address Snowy as a real dog. And there's a Snowy parking sign that started in the classroom where the child tied the dog up. Snowy parking sign moved outside. That made it easier. Snowy doesn't come to school anymore. The child has actually been able to encompass and move on past that anxiety situation. The Board of Trustees looked at what do we have for our community. We realised so many things that closed down in Berhampore. We were the biggest employer. So there's a real solid direction in the Board of Trustees to employ people from within our community. For many people, we are the first opportunity they have to get work. For some of them, we're their last chance. And every one of them has stepped up in a fabulous way. The Somali woman on the top right there, she's in a position I've lost control of completely. Many years ago, I gave it to a Somali woman, and every now and then she pops up with the next Somali woman she's giving it to. And I just don't really have any control over that anymore. We also have the biggest assets in the community. Assets are usable in that way. I mean, there are actually much bigger complexes for housing, for instance, in the council, but they are they're housing. But we have halls, we have buildings available and so on. So what you're seeing there is an Indian community group. This is on Sunday, and they are having a meeting in a classroom. Now, this is one of the barriers people say, well, a school is a school is a school. that's that classroom 10 minutes after they're finished. They take smartphone pictures of the room so they know exactly where things were, pop it back, teacher comes the next day as they left it. At that time, there was the Indian group in the classrooms. There was an autism trust meeting in our staff room. This is Sunday morning. And there was another community group doing catering in our school hall for a function that they were going to be doing. Now, what I've got up here is a whole lot of examples of partnerships and things that we've done. And in actual fact, it's nowhere near all the partnerships we have. But I'll focus on a few. The top left-hand corner there is whānau army. Now, we don't have a parent committee. We found we just struggled. People just did not want to go to committees, but they did want to do things. So we stole the whānau army concept from Christchurch after the earthquake, the whānau army and the student army. So we have the whānau army, and there is various groups going out doing what they do best in their own time, their own way. And we have what they call the officer cadre. They are the ones that do enjoy meetings. There's about 6 of them. And they get together and coordinate it. You see a tuatara there, by the way. I don't know if you can see that there. There's a little tuatara with a Santa hat on. One of the things we had was Berhampore's reputation was so bad, we realised we had to do something to improve that image. But we were really struggling. There was, come and see how good we've got. No one would come. People didn't want to know. So what we decided to do was we needed a concept that would have a good image that could then be associated with a school. And it was a parent that came up with it, and she set this market up called the NAC. There's our tuatara there. The tuatara now is on everything in the school now, because the NAC is now one of the longest running markets in the city, and it's an entry-level market for people. It's a very deliberate drive. You may notice that there's not 24 different ethnicities standing in there. It's a very deliberate drive to get the people with the money that we don't get in our community. But it's very successful, and the vendors who come really enjoy it. They really enjoy the community aspect. They'll be getting things out of the car, and a little Palestinian boy will pop up beside them saying, "Do you want someone to carry it for you?" It's a fabulous positive thing, and we could never hit the $30,000-$40,000 that high decile schools are doing, but we have 4 of these markets a year, and we start to make a real dent in the lack of money the school has. So back into these partnerships here, we have champions, allies, collaborators. We all need those. You might recognise 1 or 2 faces in there, and they do make a real difference. They don't come in very often and have to pick up the spades, but every now and then they do. But they do help us with this. So GP and Annette King were instrumental in getting a playgroup going. We found that a lot of our families weren't doing early childhood education, and even though the ministry data said they did, we actually found they probably went once or twice and then never again. So, and this is again, go talk to people, because we initially started from thinking children are coming into our school 2 years behind, we need to talk to early childhood centres and sort them out. Luckily we didn't say that, because when we actually talked to them they said, yeah, same. At the age of 3 we already know that they're 1 or 2 years behind. So the answer was before 3 years old. So what we've done is we've created a playgroup that will actually encourage people to come in, because particularly one of the things we found was it was difficult to identify. So we employ women that look like the very specific target audience we're getting. And it was something I learned when I went to Sydney, and I was with an Aboriginal artist, and we were at a police gymnasium, it was like YMCA, and I said, yeah, we can't figure out why the young Aboriginal people won't come in. And the artist said, well, how many do you employ? And they just blinked and looked at them, and you could just see what was going. But I was sitting there writing down notes. So, how do we operate at Berhampore School? We've got we've got a Montessori trust. We now have Montessori, 60 children now attend Montessori in our school. We have a swimming pool, see down the bottom left there. That's come from a guy walking through saying, I've got a crazy idea. I need to set up a swim school. There's not enough pools in the city. You've got a swimming pool. I know you can't afford to run it. How about we go into partnership? And we were sort of a bit nervous to start with. He said, hey, look, if I'm wrong, you've got a heated pool. And I said, oh, okay, off you go. And he said, and I think I can put a roof over it. And we said, you're crazy, but go for it. Well, now we've got a roof pool with gas heating. Initially set up to have 200 swims a week, we now have 2,000. Community swimming, early childhood swimming, every child in the school learns to swim now. It's absolutely fabulous. Right next to him, sorry the image isn't very big, but there's Ray Tuffin, who's from First Team Mornington Golf Club now. They're a fabulous outfit. They, you had Dying Golf Club, Dying Bowling Club. They put it together and created a community asset, and absolutely terrific. And this is another example of what we do at Berhampore. We don't necessarily do it all. Ray had this idea, but he needed children, so we provided the children, and he's now got a values-based program using golf that goes through several schools. And of course, we like to get preferential treatment at the start. This is one I really want to highlight. This sort of shows where we're going with things. We had a real issue. A lot of schools have it. Where do the parents park in the morning? You know that terrible, some people around the room are already going, yeah, I know what you mean. We had parents double parking, we had road rage, we had people complaining. The street we're in is a corridor now for people bypassing the suburb. And we think, what the heck are we going to do? We need a drop-off space. Now, the conventional wisdom is you put up signs, say, between the hours of this and this, parking is prohibited here, and they said, don't worry, we'll ticket people if they do. And we thought, whoa, one, we're going to probably get a lot of ticketed people would be parents. Also our neighbours. We just didn't feel we could alienate people. It's a bit like farmers, you need to look after your bull, don't upset your neighbour. So it was a very similar thing. But we went and talked to Emma Hope and the council, and the council was really helpful. And by the way, the council was absolutely instrumental in the swimming pool, by the way. There was fabulous support there. And we talked to her about this, and so we sat down and tried to figure out what we could do. And what we've come up with is, you see the children standing there, they call themselves dozers, drop-off zone people. And what they do is they stand out on the street. There are 2 cones put out now. The cones actually say there is a temporary just drop-off zone through here. There's been letters to everyone in the community that would be parking in the area. Around Easter and things like that, we also drop chocolate boxes in the letter boxes as well, just to grease them up. And as the parent pulls up, the child goes over, opens the door, says hello, how's it going, gets the child out, talks to the child, and shuts the door, and the parent pulls off, and the parents love it. It's just so easy for them now. And the children, and I love watching the senior children. What we did, we were just doing this to make it easier to drop kids off. What we didn't count on was the community aspect that grew out of it. And what's actually happened is that area of the street now is one of the most welcoming, fun parts of the day. As you walk in the school gates, the grown-ups who help with the drop-off zone know all the kids now, they know all their names, they know what they're doing. And you can't see him very well, but flat on his back there is the Mayor of Berhampore. He's a dog called Max. And the children just love him. Preschoolers now, and we've got preschoolers who've yet to come to our school. Make sure they stop, and they call him Roro. His name's Max. Some of the projects are big, like the pool and that, but some of them are small. And we had a guy walk through the door, and that's the fellow carrying a beehive. We have bees in the school, and he came from the environmental aspect. There's not enough bees in the world right now. We're really struggling. I've got some bees in my yard. It's made a massive difference to gardens around us. Would you guys be interested? I must admit, this time I actually did hesitate quite a bit with the water trustees and said, what do you reckon? And they said, well, what the hell? Go for it. We've got a bit of a forested area there, so I've got a very brave board of trustees, and reckless, some people say, but I think they're very brave. I think they're great. Now the bees, the children actually help run the hives now, and using the honey we've extracted to feed children who don't have breakfast, to make sandwiches at lunchtime as well. And Tony, the fellow who introduced it, he comes in and teaches people how to look after the bees. Added to that, it's become a bit of an industry. One of the teachers particularly has got right behind it, and he didn't just give it to the kids had to buy into the business. There was actually no business to buy into, but they didn't realise this. And so they raised money to be able to buy into the business. And what they've done is they are now harvesting kawakawa leaves from the town belt. I hope that's legal. And mixing that, they talked to one of the mums who was into natural homeopathy and things, and they've discovered how to make kawakawa balm, and they're now selling that in the neck market. And from that, though, the children are learning all that money's not yours. They're using it to invest back into the business, and then they get a slice that they can spend. And I think the cut this last time was $1.50. I heard one kid say, if we downsize, we can get more money. So So that's out in the broader community, but we have very community-minded people and within the school we've been recruiting for a long time, picking the right people for this sort of thing. The woman in the top left corner there, she's a teacher who hasn't taught in the school for about 8 years. She is developing an idea for how to help children who really struggle with reading and writing in low socioeconomic areas. So she's come back to the school because she knows it's a place that will encourage innovation. And my teachers just absolutely loved everything she's done. Teachers as leaders down the bottom left. Just this week we've had teachers filmed by a Ministry of Education project on maths to be able to show, too many videos and training now show teachers in America or Canada and so on are saying, you guys are amazing, we want something in New Zealand. So they went in and filmed them, they're fabulous. The bottom right corner, that's every Friday afternoon, teachers at the end of classes sit down, they still have a meeting, but they're making lunches for the children next week. Now the materials are either the honey or other community members bring in the food for them. Now the woman at the top right, this shows you the kind of people we have. She just recently had a big choice to make with a family member with health issues. We're told they need to go to a warmer climate during winter. So she came to me and said, Mark, do you think the Board of Trustees will be okay with me taking a term's leave? I said, I'm sure they will be. She said, do you mind if while I'm over there I use my skills? She went to the Cook Islands and they really struggle financially to get any money, etc., to be able to do professional development. And I said, yeah, go for it. She said, do you mind if I take things from the school to actually be able to teach reading and so on? And she spent 3 months teaching children to read, teaching teachers how to teach children to read. And that's the kind of people that we have at Berhampore School. So now it's the place where everyone feels they can flourish. Earlier, we were that school no one went to. We had 60% turnover in roll every year. Now it's less than 10%. We were at the wrong end of the bell curve. We're now at the right end. Staff turned over a rate that was phenomenal. When I first arrived, there's 6-teacher school turning over two teachers a term. Now it's a 12-teacher school and no one is leaving. The child there shows it all, I think. One of the other things as well is we also have a culture of community. And I think that the two little quick stories that demonstrate that. One, this little girl, Safi, wanted to write a letter to a teacher she'd had the year before. The teacher she knew was roughly in the area somewhere, and she didn't know how to deliver it. She hadn't figured out post. But what she did was she made an envelope and then wrote to Marlena from Safi on it, and then took it out to roughly the part of the community she thought she was in, and put it in the middle of the footpath. It was delivered. Delivered. Just last week I had a mother come in to complain. A little boy after school had hit her son with a chain. And you're thinking, what's this woman going to say? One of them is, please make sure it doesn't happen. But she then went on to say, I understand he struggles with behaviour when adults aren't around. What can we do as a community to help him? Awesome, eh? So there's now a cricket game the parents run after school that this boy can be part of. So there are adults there to help him manage his time in that space. Fabulous, culture of community. So what have we learnt through this? First and foremost, it's always people before systems. We found we flourish when people contribute and participate. It's complex and organic. Straight strategic plans do not work. We didn't always know what we were doing. Some of the most amazing outcomes weren't planned at all. And we need to understand each other, and there's a heck of a lot of misunderstanding going on. And right now, one community I really worry about being misunderstood is the Muslim community. There's a lot of values being tossed in there. There's a lot of assumptions that because a woman wears a veil, she's downtrodden. You try treating on a Somali woman, I think you'll come up very second. We need to understand people, but that takes time. You've heard that in the other projects. This is interesting. A parent came up to me, be careful with the partners you have. This dad said to me, can I show you something in the class gardens? And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, is that what I think it is? And I looked and I thought, no, it is. And don't you love the fact that children have been looking after it? I don't know if you can see it there, but some child made a little sign saying lettuce and laminated it. So The police said they think that it's just someone was speculating, how can you be held accountable for something that children are looking after? And some people said, oh, do you think it was accidentally sewn there? I said, no, it wasn't, because we pulled it out, and that night the strawberry patch got pulled apart by someone trying to find it. So, so all sorts of fun things happen within Berhampore School. As you can see, the message that we would have now, if anyone asks us, is we would never just teach now, because we've had all these positive outcomes when we didn't just focus on teaching. And everyone, I think in the room knows that it takes more than just clinical mechanical things to work with communities. So thank you very much.